South Africa. South Africa is called the Rainbow Nation because of the diversity of its population. People have lived in South Africa for more than 100,000 years. The San and the Khoekhoe are considered to be among the first South Africans, but also Bantu and Xhosa-speaking people lived in the area when the first Europeans arrived in 1652. These Europeans were Dutchmen sent by the Dutch East India Company to establish a settlement on the Cape, where trading ships going to the east could get supplies. In 1806, after the Napoleonic Wars, the British took over the Cape. By then, the Dutch settlers had begun to view themselves as Africans of European descent, Afrikaners. Discontent with British rule, 12,000 Afrikaner or Boer farmers moved north and east in what was called the Great Trek during the 1830s. Diamonds were discovered in the middle of the 1800s and gold was found towards the end of the century. These resources made the colony even more valuable. The Afrikaners and the British fought one another in the Boer War 1899 to 1902. Battles were fought on all fronts, between the Boers, the Afrikaners and the British, between different African tribes and between the African tribes and the whites. In fact, one of the worst battles was fought between the British and the Zulu in the province KwaZulu-Natal. The British won, making South Africa a part of the British Empire. In 1910, the Union of South Africa was established. The Afrikaners and the British had one thing in common. They did not view people of color as their equals. In 1913, the Native Lands Act made sure that the white population owned 90% of the land and left just 10% for others. In 1948, the policy of apartheid was introduced. All South Africans were placed in racial categories: white, black, colored, people of mixed ethnic origin, Asians and others. A person's racial category determined where they could live, who they could marry, what school they could go to, and what kind of career they could have. All rights were whites, while people of color had few or no rights. Apartheid split families and ruined lives. If one parent was categorized as colored and the other as black, they were not allowed to live together. The ANC, African National Congress, was established in the 1920s to fight for the civil rights of black South Africans. In 1962, one of the ANC leaders, Nelson Mandela, was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. People and governments around the world increased their protests and boycotts. Mandela was released from prison in 1990 and the policy of apartheid was abandoned in 1991. In 1994, Mandela was elected president in the first democratic election in South Africa where all South Africans could vote. The ANC has been the majority party in all elections since 1994. The abolishment of apartheid and the political changes in South Africa have not improved the lives of all South Africans. Millions of black and colored people still live in so-called townships. Although the townships have undergone great changes since 1994, these racially segregated living areas often suffer from violence and poverty, lack of water and electricity, inadequate schools and insufficient sanitation.